Cast your minds back to the beginning of the 2022 season. The cars were porpoising, the Miami Grand Prix had fake water, and the question on everyone's mind was, can Ferrari and Leclerc win this championship? Yep, those were simpler days, and then the the Ferrari strategy attacked. Now that Ferrari has effectively taken itself out of the championship, and I made a video all about this, a new question arises. Can Max Verstappen lose the 2022 championship? After the Hungarian Grand Prix, Max Verstappen is first in the standings with 258 points, and Charles LeClerc is a whopping 80 points behind him with 178. And rounding out the podium and hot on Leclerc's heels is Sergio Perez in third with 173, which is a noticeably smaller difference in points. This season's title fight has been between Verstappen and Leclerc from the start, with respective teammates Perez and Carlos Sainz firmly in supportive roles. At this point in the season, Verstappen has 8 wins to Leclerc's 3 and 2 DNFs to Leclerc's 3. Besides the DNFs, he has finished outside of the top 3 only once, whilst Leclerc has missed out on the podium a whopping 5 times, and that's not counting the retirements. If we add those, Leclerc has been off the podium more times than he's been on it. All of this means that although it is mathematically possible for someone else to win the championship, Verstappen is far enough ahead that he doesn't have to even win every race left in the season. He could take it easy and turn in a few second and third place finishes as well, and still come out on top. So let's do some maths. Let's say Leclerc goes on a winning streak from Spa to Abu Dhabi and gets the fastest lap in each, bagging himself 26 points per race. That is a total of 234 points. And if you add that to his current 178, he'll finish the season with 412 points. That should be enough to win, right? Well, say Verstappen comes second every race, earning him 162 points. Add that to his 258, and he'll end up with 420, meaning he still wins the championship by 8 points. Now, of course, it's very unlikely that either Verstappen or Leclerc are going to have a straight run of first or second place finishes, but it should give you an idea of what the stakes are at this point in the championship. Formula 1 may have become a sport of accountants, according to Flavio Briatore, but the numbers don't always tell the whole story. Yet if we look at Verstappen's performance in Hungary, we can get a sense of the bigger picture, as the race was essentially a condensed version of Verstappen's season so far. Starting from 10th, he went on to win the race with some exemplary driving and careful yet adaptive strategy calls. In a very professional and sportsmanlike post-race interview, Verstappen said, starting 10th, winning the race on a track like this is of course very, very good. There are always a few areas where we could have done better, but overall, of course, I'm very happy. After a race like that, complete with a 360 spin to keep things excited, being very happy is an understatement that only someone who's in complete control of the championship can make. So with all of this in mind, can Verstappen and Red Bull really lose? Well, let's take a look at some scenarios on how the rest of the season could play out. Red Bull had an uncharacteristically difficult start to the season, with DNFs for both Verstappen and Perez. And Perez also suffered a gearbox failure in Canada, so although it seems that Red Bull has managed to fix their car for now, DNFs aren't unheard of. One faulty gearbox or a brake issue could take Verstappen out of the race, and retirements can happen for other reasons too, crashing or getting crashed into, or getting caught in the start of the race madness and rubbing tyres with a McLaren could cut Verstappen's race short. Wishing DNS for Red Bull feels a little mean, but the fact is that at this point in the season, the two Red Bulls have had 5 retirements between them, and we have 9 more races to go. In the entire 2021 season, Red Bull had a total of 6 DNFs, only one of which was due to a technical issue from reliability issues. So whilst it's unlikely, it's not impossible for Verstappen to end up in the gravel somewhere with a smoking gearbox, allowing for Leclerc to catch up just that little bit. With the current 80-point difference between the two, 1 to 3 retirements from Verstappen might be enough, and frankly, it feels a little bit stupid to expect any more. Red Bull might have had reliability issues, but they're not like Alfa Romeo. Next scenario is Mercedes fixes their car. Mercedes' season has been a mixed bag thus far, especially compared to their dominance in recent years. After Hungary, they've yet to win a race, but they have managed to collect 11 podium finishes between George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, meaning Mercedes has graced the podium more often than not. It's also worth noting that they finished 2nd and 3rd in the last 2 races, and that Mercedes has only had 1 DNF, Russell at Silverstone. And in likelihood, he could have continued, but he got out to go check on Zhou Guanyu. Despite the decently consistent results, the Silver Arrows are failing to live up to their name. With Russell currently in 4th and Hamilton in 6th, Mercedes is 3rd in the Constructors' Championship, 30 points behind Ferrari in 2nd. Mercedes had trouble with porpoising in the early rounds, but they fixed that by making the car stiffer than the rod up the FIA's backside. Said stiffness and low ride height has been causing problems for both Hamilton and Russell, but of course the latter is more used to squeezing a half-decent drive out of a terrible car. The summer break should give Mercedes a chance to put that German engineering prowess to the test and sort out the last problems with their car. This in turn should put more pressure on Verstappen, as Hamilton in particular is more than capable of challenging him, but Russell could take him on too. Of course, unless Verstappen ends up in the gravel at every single race, it's unlikely that Russell can make up the current 100-point difference, but a competitive Mercedes could disrupt Verstappen's winning streak and allow for others to catch up. I'm sure that the Microsoft Office wizard George Russell has crunched his own numbers, but if Mercedes manages to demote Verstappen to third or lower in at least 2 or 3 races, Ferrari could complete the podiums. And with literally all of that, Verstappen's reign could be cut short. It's a massive if, but still, stranger things have happened. Ferrari has been shamed by fans and pundits alike for their mid-season strategy blunders, and Ferrari's strategy engineer Hannah Schmitz has been rightfully praised for doing the exact opposite of whatever it is that Ferrari is trying to do. Matteo Binotto has either been putting on a brave face or is actually running a masterclass in self-destruction by assuring us that Ferrari doesn't make strategy calls at random. It is the unlikeliest of scenarios, but bear with me. What if Ferrari actually manages to fix their strategy during the summer break? Ferrari has everything else that they need for a winning season. 2 great drivers, a fast car, devoted fans. But despite this, they are shooting themselves in both feet and their hands every weekend by making completely unhinged strategy calls. The biggest victim of Ferrari's strategy blunders is Leclerc, whose hopes of a world title have effectively been dashed by his own team. However, Leclerc is still Verstappen's closest competitor and the only current thing standing between Red Bull and complete domination. Ferrari has proven that they are capable of winning races when they're not deliberately messing up, and as per my earlier calculations, Verstappen has built up a pretty decent lead, but it's not insurmountable. Yes, he could still win with a streak of second place finishes, but throw in 3 or 4 third places and perhaps even, dare I say it, a 4th place, and Leclerc is in with a shout. Former Formula 1 driver Pedro Della Rosa put it pretty well in an interview before the Hungarian Grand Prix. Ferrari have to be aggressive from now on. The only way to stop Max is for Charles and Carlos to finish 1-2 in the next few races, otherwise the title is lost. And of course Ferrari were far from a 1-2 at the Hungarian Grand Prix, so it's now high time for them to get their act together. And scenario 4, Leclerc is possessed by the ghost of Ayrton Senna, develops an inexplainable bond with his car and proceeds to win every race. I'm just joking, but although at this point it seems like having a decent strategy from Ferrari seems just about as likely. Alternatively, if that's a bit too far-fetched from you, we could have Leclerc make a deal with the devil and sell his soul for the championship. The reality is, of course, that for Verstappen to lose, everything I've mentioned pretty much has to happen, except for the last scenario. Although it probably wouldn't hurt to send an Ouija board to Ferrari's team. Red Bull could lose its lead with a couple of DNFs, but that's only if Ferrari learns what strategy means and if Mercedes finally finds their pace. With only 9 races left in the season, every team has to make every round count. Although the fate of the World Championship hasn't yet been decided, Verstappen is dangerously close to walking away with the title, and this is Ferrari and Mercedes' last chance to stop him. Even if the title fight isn't looking too hot right now, there are plenty of contenders for second place. Leclerc has managed to hold on to second by the skin of his teeth, but there are 4 other drivers who could snatch it for him with a couple of good finishes. As I mentioned, Perez is currently only 5 points behind Leclerc, a distance that's perfectly possible to cover within a single race. One double stack pit stop again from Ferrari and a good run from Perez, and the roles might be reversed. 15 points behind Perez, we find Russell, currently in 4th with 158 points. This means that he's only 20 points off Leclerc, and while making that difference within a single race is unlikely, it's perfectly manageable with 2 or 3 good finishes, especially if Ferrari keeps clowning around. And Carlos Sainz is 5th in the championship, only 2 points behind Russell, meaning the Brit is within his reach. A 2-point difference is easily made up within a single race, and from there, it's not that difficult to bridge the gaps between Perez and Leclerc. Of course, Sainz also has to fight Ferrari's strategy in addition to the other teams and drivers, but he has proven himself to be capable of both. And completing the list of second place contenders is Hamilton, currently in 6th with 146 points. He may only be 10 points behind Sainz and 32 points behind Leclerc, which might seem like a lot, but may I remind you that Leclerc is 80 points behind Verstappen. Mathematically, it's perfectly possible for Hamilton to make up the difference with a few podiums. All of this means that although we most likely already have our winner, there are 5 possible runners-up this year. No matter how you slice it, that'll be our top 6, with Norris far enough behind in 7th to be out of contention. Rounding up the top 10 are Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, and Fernando Alonso. And just to give you an idea of the disparity between the top teams, Norris currently has 76 points, meaning that he's 112 points behind Leclerc, and that Verstappen has more than 3 times as many points as Norris. All of this being said, we still have a lot to look forward to in the second half of this season. Sebastian Vettel's retirement and Fernando Alonso's move to Aston Martin, Oscar Piastri not driving for Alpine next year, and the perilous state of Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren contract have set the drivers' market into frenzy, and if nothing else, it's going to be one hell of a silly season. Let's just hope that the teams have a bit of time left over from all the madness to work on their cars. The 2022 regulations and specifications have wreaked havoc on the cars, and although the teams have done their best to make upgrades on the go, the season has been pretty intense with quite a few back-to-back race weekends. The summer break should give everyone a chance to regroup and make the necessary improvements for the deciding final rounds. Pretty much every team has something they have to fix, but of course, some are in deeper trouble than others. If Williams has failed to build a decent car in the past decade, it's unlikely that they'll manage to turn it into something drivable within the 2 weeks that are left over from the mandatory shutdown period. My main hope for the summer break is for McLaren to improve almost everything. And according to McLaren's technical director James Key, McLaren has 2 problems to address: straight line speed and high temperature management. But although they are looking at ways to make short-term improvements, some of the development work in these areas is aimed at 2023. Let's just hope that they are giving us enough upgrades this year to give us some interesting fights in the midfield. And while McLaren's fixing their car, maybe they'll manage to fix the team as well and give us a straight answer on Ricciardo. The Honey Badger himself must be tired of the speculation, but so are the fans. When we say we want drama, we mean on the track, not off of it. So that's the situation so far. Verstappen is firmly in the lead, and although Leclerc has a chance, it's going to take either a massive improvement from Ferrari or the implosion of Red Bull for ties to turn in his favour. The battle for second is one to keep an eye on, and the midfield fights aren't too shabby either, provided that everyone uses the summer break to its fullest. I, for one, can't wait to see what Spa has in store for us. But what do you guys think? Do you think that Verstappen's just going to run away with this season, or do you think that there's a slight chance that Red Bull might implode? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinions on all of this. But with that said, I'll see you next time.